Welcome to RMM Help. In this session we provide an overview of adding and maintaining asset details in RMM. We recommend you view the videos on Asset Register Overview and the introduction to adding assets before you start setting up your asset details. We carry on from the Asset Register Introduction video, and the option to add a new asset is here in the Actions section, and we'll click on Add a Facilities Asset, and this presents a blank tab form, and as you can see the only data item that's pre-filled on here is our commission and warranty dates and the commission and the warranty period. When this asset form is in use, there are 11 tabs across the top, but to start off with there's only 3 displayed, and the remainder tabs get displayed the first time we save the record, and our save option is over here. We must stress the importance of using this save option regularly. It's essential to save any changes to an asset record before we navigate to another tab to ensure our data entry is not lost. We'll enter our minimum asset details and then we'll use the save option. So our minimum data items are to put in a description. So we'll type in here new asset as our description, and then all we need to do before we save the record to get our asset ID is to put in a location. Now it could well be that you are adding multiple assets into the system direct from your source documents that have come in. There may be delivery notes or purchase requisitions, and we might want to be able to put them into the register and then add our locations at a later date. So we can do this by simply setting up a dummy asset location record, and I've done one which I've called unknown. So if I type in new, it then brings up my options, and there's unknown. So I click on that, so I've got a site, building and location of unknown, and at this point I can actually save my record and get the asset ID. I'm also going to be prompted when I save this for me to select a service level agreement for that particular asset, and there's separate videos available on the multi-client, single client and SLA options, but I'll select the first one in the list, and my saving icon appears, and then I've now got an asset ID. So at this point I can start entering all of my data items. Either I can enter them a field at a time, or alternatively I could use the model reference, and if I select that from the drop down list, all of the data items have been pre-set up in my model will automatically fill. And we've also got this duplicate asset option, and separate videos are available on duplicate asset and on using the model reference. Before we go any further, I'd like to mention the delete option, which is over here in Actions. At any stage during data entry, we can delete an asset. I could move away from the record and still delete it, but if we put this asset into service and we start recording things like maintenance against it, then I won't be able to delete it. And if I did try to delete it, I'd be prompted with a message to say that work records exist. And under those circumstances, what we would do is we would use the dispose option to move our asset from the operational assets into a disposed asset register. Now, I mentioned about work being added to an asset. Up here in our accumulated maintenance cost, this is not an editable field. It's automatically updated with all maintenance costs that are entered during feedback. So if we put in labor cost, a materials cost, or any other costs, then it works in real time. So as we're adding and updating those costs, so this value here will change. So what we end up with there is a lifetime maintenance cost for the asset. Most of our data entry, apart from where we've got memo fields like other details here, where we just enter free format text, are from these drop-down lists of data items, and separate videos are available on how they're set up in the administration section. Some of them have a relationship. So if, for instance, I went to asset category and I said, I know that this asset is something to do with beds and mattresses, I could then go to my asset type, and that's been now pre-formatted so that it's filtered just for those that are related to the asset category of beds and mattresses. So I could pick one of those items, and I can save at any time as I'm entering these data items. Some of the data items are grayed out, as we've got with Asset Manager and Telephone. And if I select an owner department, if I type in P and I select Physio, then our Asset Manager and telephone number have both been added. So they're not, the grayed out items aren't editable. If we wanted to change those, we'd have to use one of these ellipsis forms to be able to go in and update the owner department. On the ellipsis form, if I went into our CE marks here, and this gives us our list of existing items. If I notice I've got 111 up there. If I added a new one of 2222 and I save that, and I wanted to use that value, I highlight it, the row has gone red, and I use select, and that value comes back, and I can save at that point. So this is particularly useful when we're initially setting up the asset register, where we may have missed some of our code files. Some of the options for adding information in are contained down here in our actions area, and we can use the select risk option, and I'll take a risk value, and that then comes in over here. If I had any notes I wanted to put in them relating to that risk, I could simply do my free format text, and then don't forget we need to save the record. Some of the other options that are useful over here that might be useful while you're adding this asset detail. If the assets are available and you use a barcoded label, if I click on barcode, you can see that my barcode label is produced here. And if you speak to ResMan support, we can help you with the layout of that so that it will be formatted correctly for the size of label that you want to use. And the barcode, we can also help you with an appropriate font to work with whatever scanner it is that you've chosen. Before we finish on asset details, there's one other option down here that I'd like to mention, and that's asset notification. If, for instance, we wanted to prompt a help desk user that there was something special, that a special message that we wanted to draw their attention to, we can type it in this. So let's say, for instance, we hadn't seen this asset if it was an asset that we hadn't seen for to carry out PPM for some time, then we might want to say requires urgent PPM. And when I say OK, that's stored away, and when the help desk operator uses that asset ID to record a fault, it will automatically pop up that message. So that concludes the information on setting up our Asset Details tab. And before we move on to financials, I'll just stress one more time that we must save the record. And this concludes the overview of adding and maintaining asset details in ResMan.